I remember days they used to laugh at me. Used to show them on my records talking casually. Used to say it was a passion on my path to be. Then they told me that I couldn't, so I had to be. Tell me what they really think about it now. Used to hate it, but I guarantee they're proud. Had to do it just to show them that I could, yeah. Now I finally think I took it where I should, yeah. Had a jokes on you and now you're on and laughing. I did a whole lot of winning. Look, it came from a passion. I see a whole lot of knowings I could see now in public. And that may think a lot of things, man. At least think something, now you the judge. And now tell me where you ended up. Yeah. Look, I bet it was a simple job. Yeah. Look, I went and took a different route. Yeah. Look, that's why my life is different now. Back in my feelings, look, when I wasn't so gifted and I was learning to do this, and all I heard were the critics, and I don't blame you for that shit. Look, I was way out the basis, but I just needed some talent so I could witness the greatness. Oh yeah, you ain't ever think this, no, no, no. Stop me while I started, homie, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now this shit settled, it's go better and better, but I'll always remember, yeah, yeah.
Welcome back to That One Podcast. It's your boy C-Roc here. We're in Vegas, meeting a lot of our friends here that we haven't seen in a while. You know, I also have our co-host here, Mckinzie Roth. Say hi, Kenzie.
Hey, what's going on? I wore your favorite boots, so I know you're pumped.
There we go.
Because we have a very, very special guest, and I feel like, you know, we gotta have some fun. The energy is electric.
Not my favorite boots.
Yeah,
Johnny D's favorite boots. Look, we have Johnny D here, live in Vegas. Appreciate you guys being here, whether you're watching or listening, consuming this content. Either way, it makes us feel great to have your support, and we want to have you keep coming back. So make sure you do. And let me introduce our guest, Johnny D. He's here.
Yes.
Johnny, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Great to be back with you. But now I get to meet you in purpose and feel the vibe.
Yeah.
You know, and then get to meet you, Kenzie.
Oh,
and you're gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
You really
oh
are.
my God. Well, thank you. We're so excited.
She livens the show up. I said this before. You know, my show is very, one-on-one usually.
Yeah.
And now, like, I can take a breath and let her ask some questions.
Right. And
It's a
also get a
relief.
different perspective with those questions.
Oh, it's great.
Exactly.
It's great. She's doing a great job.
We're having
so
a good
thank you
time.
for being here.
Oh my God. Well, hello, Vegas. This is amazing.
This is great. This is why I moved here.
Yeah, so it's F1. For you guys don't know, it's F1 right now. We're going to these events, watching the race cars for like 2 seconds. That's all you get to see if you go to the race. And we're just having a good time and, finding out what makes people that come on this show. So Johnny D, I want to know, first of all, like, where did this story start? Like, we were talking offline about doing voices. Right. And you said you started at 5 years old.
Started at 5 years old.
So tell me about that part.
Well, I grew up in Ambler, which you might know, which is kind of like someone took South Philly and dragged it out of South Philly. And it's a row home neighborhood. We had the largest asbestos factory in the. Yeah, I know. Pretty amazing. So,
not to brag.
Not to brag, folks. CPOD, anyone? And it was just rows and rows of houses. And as a kid, you really knew your neighbors, and you knew your adult neighbors and your kids and everybody you grew up with. But my neighbors would sit out on their steps. This is the late '60s, and I was a big ham. And I would watch Ed Sullivan and all the other shows, and I would see John Biner and all the other comedians, and I was always amazed. It was Ed Sullivan, and John Biner would do Ed Sullivan, and I was like, wait a minute, he's doing his voice. I wonder, and I would walk outside, hello everybody, it's me, Ed Sullivan, as a 5-year-old kid, Tonight on our show, the fabulous Garbazzo brothers and Girl Scout Troop 625. Girls, stand up and show us your cookies. And my neighbors just went bananas. That I was like this fearless little kid, this precocious kid who would learn these acts. And I loved it. And I would keep watching movies and television and learning all of these different voices and getting that affirmation from an audience.
That's what I was going to ask you about that. Like, how did that?
Oh, it's so great. When you have adults who are laughing at your material and what you're doing. And then when I went into first grade, one of the things was I would do an impression, and the impression was spot on for a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I don't want to oversell it. but when I didn't do an impression, I had a severe speech impediment. And my parents, my brothers, everybody, my relatives would all say, you sound like Elmer Fudd. Because everything was in the way. My tongue, my adenoids, and all that kind of stuff. So when I went into first grade and they diagnosed me with the speech impediment, I did speech therapy for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
2 times a week for 8 years. And during that time, and they corrected my speech, which was awesome, I basically was like, oh, well, wait, if I do this, I can create this sound. If I do this with my nose, because they're telling me all the things not to do.
Right.
So, and I always say the perfect voice for this is Trump. Because if you listen to Trump, he's got, you get the nasality of the Northeast. You've got the over enunciation. You've got the slow down and the quick speed up. So all these things they were teaching me about tongue placement, throat placement, nasal placement, I figured I could do pretty much anything. So I would keep doing voices, and I loved theater and acting and all those types of things. And I would watch, Columbo and go, wait a minute, folks, I hate to bother you.
You can even do the faces.
That's so good.
I'm a little confused. So I, went off and in high school did all the shows. Then I went to college and did theater there. And then I said, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian, actor, writer. And when I got out of college, was in a comedy troupe and all those different things. And as you're going through the process and I'm developing all these voices, I'm trying to do this the way you're taught to do it,
right?
Which you eventually learn, like, throw everything out, do it your own way. So I kept doing these voices, and I was doing stand-up. And, when you're a kid, I did stand-up when I was 12 for the very first time, for like a real thing. And I'm watching comedians on these shows, and I'm thinking, I want to be a comedian actor. I want to, like, do this and then move on and do that. And then when you get out on the road, it sucks.
Yeah.
It really, it's terrible. Like,
Wait a minute, well, why though?
The reason why is, what you don't realize is it's very hard. None of the clubs are the same. The sight lines aren't the same. The sound systems aren't the same. There's nothing to it. Everything's different. And you're driving 500 miles to play the Chuckle Hut in Dayton, Ohio, and you do it, and the 8 o'clock show you kill. 10 o'clock show you bomb. And it's like this emotional roller coaster. And it was tough, and obviously a lot of people have made it. And I was working with some really talented comedians. I mean, people who came up with Leno and Seinfeld and Tim Allen, and they were done. They'd gone as far as they could go. And I remember thinking, I was a middle act, I was a featured act, and I remember thinking, I'm funny, but I'm not that funny. I knew my limit on how far I could go. And I knew I still wanted to do comedy in some way. And then somebody saw me, I did something in New York, and I got booked on my first corporate gig.
Okay.
It was like 96, 97. And they flew me down to Florida, and it was first class. First time I'd ever flown. Probably the first time I'd ever flown. And the guys got my name for the first time. I'm
that's
like,
a moment,
that's
right?
a big
you see
moment.
Your name
There's my name, misspelled, of course, but that's my name.
Still.
And then he says, we didn't have a town car, so I hope you don't mind, it's a limo. I'm like, mind? It's a limo? Not at all. And then I went to the hotel, and I think we were at the Swan or something at Disney. I'm like, what the heck? I grew up poor. My dad was a steel worker with a 9th grade education. So all of a sudden you're in this place, and then they say, I get the phone call, and they said, hey, could you come down? We're going to have a production meeting. And I'm like, a production meeting? What is a production meeting? So you sit there, and everybody on the team goes around, and the lighting guy, the director, they're all Broadway people. And I'm coming in to do this one element for the meeting, and I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. Because no one tells you about stand-up. It's lonely.
Yeah.
It is painfully lonely. You rarely work with the same comedians. I mean, every now and then you do. But a lot of time you're by yourself. You're in your room by yourself. You perform by yourself. And I realized, life, hopefully through life you learn. I've learned more about myself. I always say my biography, the title will be, I Thought I Was Somebody Else. Because I really thought I was somebody else. But I've learned a lot. And I learned, I like working with a team. I like performing with a team. I like an engaged audience, which I got with corporate audiences. So then around 97, 98, I really focused on the corporate stuff. Still doing my comedy, but in front of a totally different audience. And I had friends who were still in the stand-up comedy world to this day. They're getting out there and they're getting known. I'm being known inside my industry. And that industry has given me so much, and I've learned so much. And one of the things is seeing keynote speakers, which is something I'm moving to now after years of doing this. But I was always looking for characters I could sell at national sales meetings and corporate events.
I want to ask you, because I've interviewed tons of comedians, and, you know, what I've found is that they really have these highs of highs and lows of lows. Have you found that? I mean, it's very common.
I'll tell you, it'll almost bring tears to my eyes. I got a headlining gig. It was in the Poconos, and I was so excited. And I told my friend of mine, I'm doing the so-and-so room at whatever, and he goes, death room. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, that room is death. I said, really? He goes, yeah, it's bad. And I'm like,
great. Yeah, exactly.
And that night, I bombed. Like, bombing at a level of bombing. And the thing was, the closest audience member to you, like most clubs, I'm like this. I'm standing on stage. You're like here. You're like here.
To be intimate.
And and there's also this connection you have, that intimacy, and there's almost like an obligation, you know. And that room, the closest person was 25 feet away. They messed up my name and my setup when they introduced me, and they didn't have my music. My whole bit opened to music, and that bit was it was just like, and I drove back to New York that night, literally crying my eyes out, because like you realize like so many things are out of your control in what you do, and especially when it's a one-on-one. So doing all this corporate stuff, I kept adding new characters and bringing on board new things that would work for big audiences. And one of those was, you know, I had met Trump in 1990 because I did a show at the Plaza. But when he did the Apprentice, I was like, oh, this can work for corporate audiences. This would be perfect.
That's the timing thing you're talking about.
That's the timing thing, yeah, because so much of doing what I do, and performers and singers and everybody, it is timing. So much of this is timing. And even like right now with what you're doing in podcasts, you know, if this were 20 years ago, the barriers to entry to doing this stuff is impossible. But we're sitting here right now, and this can go out, and somebody in Bangladesh who's working in a factory can watch this, who speaks English, and go, I want that life.
Yeah.
I want to get the hell out of here and reach that. And the fact there's so many people doing this, I really, there's one of my things that I talk about is we live in this time where we have such incredible opportunity because of podcasting and the internet, and somebody can be discovered for SNL or as an athlete can be discovered. This is really an incredible time.
Yeah.
That's
you
right.
know, so it's like a moral imperative that you absolutely try to meet your full potential.
100%.
And that's one of the reasons I really like your stuff, because you are out there promoting that yourself and having people on who believe in that. You know?
Yeah.
And to tie that back to myself, I always feel like you have to keep working, you have to keep trying, and there's timing and there's luck, and there's two things that happen. Trump, you know, ran in 2015. I'd already been doing him since 2004, and my other characters too. And he announced then, and there was practically no one doing Trump.
Right.
Especially the way I do it with the $4,000 wigs and the $1,600 suits.
Because how much money?
Yeah, the wigs are handmade. They're 100. They take about 90 to 100 hours
He
to
gets
make.
it all,
they look
character and
good.
everything.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell.
And that's my theater training. I wanted to make all of my characters, Guy Fieri, Austin Powers. I want everyone to look like, huh?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
How
a
do
double
you
take.
perfect your character? Like, do you just, is it repetition when you take on a new one?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you decide this? I'm going to do this, and how do you do it? How do you become it? Is it a million times in the mirror? Or what?
It's a million times in the mirror, but
Okay.
I have like a couple things I have to go through. So first off, barring can I do the character? Can I resell this character? Will this character work in a corporate thing? Can I make myself look like this character? Because certain people I can't.
Sure.
You know, but some of that Guy Fieri, baby, I put the wig on, the goatee, I'm dropping the mustard flavor down, baby. I'm stricken with chicken. Love, peace, and taco grease, baby. So when I was like, you know what, this guy's super popular, he's got a great look.
Yeah.
And then it's like that I break every voice down by 8 points. So, and I'll go back to Trump again, but he's just so perfect for this. Like throat placement. Can I hit that person's throat placement? Nasality. Where is he on the nasal scale? Where is this person producing the sound? Because we all have the vocal mask. You have some people who talk like this, and they're basically back of their throat. But then you have other people who are talking out about here. All of us should be talking here. Our voice should hit right here when we speak with the vocal mask. So then is the physicality of it, all those little things. And I always like to add, because I write it out. I always write everything out. And I'm thinking, all right, so what's the secret sauce? You know, with Trump, it's confidence. With Guy Fieri, that's that swagger, baby. With Olsen, baby, it's yeah, baby. It's that sexuality, and it's really right here more than anything else, you know. So I like to break every character down, and then once I have that list, I can always refer to it and go back.
What a talent you are! I mean, I just see you exude. You're amazing.
I'm just sitting here in my face. So I gotta go back to something for a second. When you're talking about prior to us starting to record here, you talked about your dad and some of the things he would say to you, and he was a hard man. And
he was
all
a
that,
hard
right?
ass man.
So what did he think of you when you were entertaining the neighbors? And then the other thing is, have you ever imitated your dad or came up with a?
Yeah, I did. I've never had a full on. He was a World War II veteran.
Yeah.
He lied about his age to get in. He had a very tough time during the war. He was wounded 6 times. And this isn't like now you hurt your knee and they send you home. Like he was stuck because he was with the Seabees. He was not a Seabee, but he was with them. And they were building the roads and the runways in the Pacific Theater. Like you were stuck. They weren't flying you home. So he was a really tough guy. Aww. And when he came back, he was a mechanic. And then somewhere along the line, he went through a really brutal divorce from his first wife, and he gave everything away. He gave all his tools away. He was defeated. And then he got a job at Standard Press Steel in Glenside, Pennsylvania. And he worked there for 35 years. And then I would cut grass with him on the weekends because he started a landscaping company. And this kind of goes back to some other stuff that you talk about, is that work ethic. He gave me an insane work ethic. You know, but he would say stuff, even though he worked at a steel plant, he didn't talk a lot, but he would say odd things like, "You'll never get rich working for the man." Yeah, I'm thinking like, sayings. Right, that's very unusual coming out of you. You know what I mean? He was just but he was a tough guy, and I was an alien to him. Right. I was a foreign entity in his home who never shut the hell up. You know what I mean? And my brother Steven was the athlete. Yeah. Okay. And my brother Michael was a little more, he had a twin. My brothers are Michael and Steven. They're twins, but they're polar opposites. So, but he later on started appreciating me and understood that this was my passion. This is what I wanted to do. And this is what drives me to this day. It's what drives me. But I remember he introduced me, Michael, and Steven, and he said, "This is Steven, he's an athlete. This is Michael," I forget what he said. He goes, "And this is my son, the thespian." And I just thought that was the funniest thing, you know. And I'm gonna cry in a second if you'll bear with me.
Yeah, take your time, man.
Yeah.
Because my father died of pancreatic cancer, and he ended up in Chestnut Hill Hospital next to, because this is just unbelievable, because he never went to church. You know, he was a lapsed Catholic. He used to say to me, "I'm a lapsed Catholic." He goes, "I'm going to hell because that's where all the dancing girls are." But when he was dying, he was at Chestnut Hill Hospital, and by an unbelievable coincidence, he was next to the former communications director of the Vatican. No I'm thinking, way. This guy's got the luck.
Yeah,
he's going out. And he was. I came one time. He wasn't there. And the priest said, Monsignor, he said, "Your father's really proud of you. He just talks about you all the time. But he's never said he loved me. And he never, and it was, I was like, hold on, the guy who was in this bed, this guy was talking about me. So it was, he was really impressed that I took on something that was very difficult. There wasn't a factory to go to. There wasn't a roadmap. And then I was out there and I was making a living, and I've continued to make a living all these years by finding another way and reinventing and adding on a new character and finding out you can do this in the corporate world and you can do this, and that's what I've done, and that's why I kind of love like being on this podcast, because it just kind of helps me be grateful to do what I do, because we're all very lucky, but there's some days you're like, I'm gonna further along in this.
100%.
You know what I mean?
And
You're like,
patience. You gotta have patience. And,
right?
Yeah.
And
100%.
what a gift that was passed on to you. I love that because
I had no idea. I had no idea, but it was a beautiful gift.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the vulnerability for me is a huge thing, and I just appreciate you for going
Thank
there.
you.
Man.
I was still going to cry because it wouldn't stop.
No, man.
My dad would say, "Oh, here comes the waterworks."
Did you imitate him though? Like,
Yeah, to my brother. And it's funny, as I've gotten older, he has really short fuse. So do I. But
We call it passion.
Yeah, passion. I like
very
that.
passionate.
I'm passionate. But I'll say to my girlfriend sometime, Michelle, who I'm engaged to, I'll say, "You don't want me to break out John Sr. You don't want that. You don't want that, because it just takes you over." But I do imitate him.
Yeah.
But one of the things he taught me about comedy in a very mild way is he rarely spoke. But he would do something really silly, not a lot, but he would put on a cowboy hat, right? And he would just make a face. And it was
Yeah.
because he didn't do that all the time. He didn't really talk a lot, but it taught me, like, if you're on all the time, you diminish yourself comedically. Mm-hmm. So if you do it at precise times, it increases the comedic value. He didn't do it for that reason, but it's what I learned
The lesson.
from him. Yeah.
How do you deal with people that say, be funny? You know, when they want to be out with you and they want your energy, but then they put you on the spot.
They put me on the spot, and
Yeah.
I'll do voices. I don't mind doing voices.
Sure.
But sometimes I'll have a corporate client, and you've seen my stuff. I did 5 years on Conan, 3 years on
Yes.
Howard Stern, and I've earned my stripes, and I know I have to do it every day. But when someone goes, "Hey, be funny, you're doing our meeting," okay, well,
Right, exactly.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
You turn to
save
somebody,
that.
"Hey, do some accounting. Do some
Make me a bite.
Exactly.
Make me a bite, clown.
Yeah, hey, you're an
exactly.
you're an actuarial. Do an actuarial table for me.
Yeah.
But I'll just break right into an impression.
There you go.
How did you get discovered for Stern?
This goes back to something I wanted to talk about, that timing and luck.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing is somebody else driving you. Because you talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes you got to have someone like this. And sometimes you don't want to hear it, and it's external. But do you remember Sarah Cooper when Trump was first in office? She's a comedian, but she did precise lip syncs of Trump. And she became very famous. She even ended up with a Netflix special.
Okay.
Right? And I always try to be like very zen. Okay, good for her. But I was kind of like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I've been doing this for 14 years back then. I'm like, she's lip syncing. People, it's lip syncing.
Right.
You know? And the thing was, you don't understand why something takes off.
Right.
Why someone is popular. But the thing was, she was really funny, her facial expressions. So I had to get past why not me?
Right.
And watch her and go, she's really talented. She's great. And she's out there, and people were sending them to me all the time. And I was doing one day of just all corporate stuff as Trump and cameos. And I was wrapping up because I have a White House. You probably saw it. I have a White House press room in my house. It's a total replica. And I was wrapping up and literally shutting out the lights. It had been a long day, and you're in makeup the whole time. And I said, I have to do some content for me. I got to do something. I got to work a little harder. I have to give 5 more yards today. I just have to give 5 more yards. And it was the day that Trump took his COVID test. So I came out and did, folks, I just had my COVID test. They said it was absolutely incredible. The greatest COVID test in the history of COVID tests. It was incredibly negative, so amazingly negative. It was so negative, it was positive. It actually came all the way around. And it was like 3 minutes, and I put it up, and I went to bed, and it went viral. So I'm laying in bed, and I don't keep my phone next to me. One of the things I've learned. So I'm laying there, and and it's in the bathroom on the marble. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And it's a lot. Oh, and I'm like, what? Howard Stern's talking about you. Howard Stern's talking.
Yes.
Howard Stern loves you. I'm like, what the fuck? Why is he talking about me? And it was that. He played it that day. He goes, this guy, John Domenico, this guy's fantastic. I wasn't going to record that. I gave myself 5 more yards that day.
Yeah.
That was just a moment.
Yeah.
That was a moment for us all to resonate.
And then in that moment, I'm like, holy shit, oh my God. And I've always wanted to be on the show. I mean, God, I've been listening to the show. Yeah. My brother lived in Long Island in the 80s, so I had heard him for years. But I'm like, oh my God, here's my moment. I got to let him know. And I'm literally like walking in circles at my house, like who's in New York? And I went, wait a minute. Tom Buchwald's my agent. Howard's agent is my agent because they've helped me do like special voiceover projects. I was not signed to them, but they represented me on some animation and everything. But earlier in the year, Robin Steyer, who was then the operations, who ran Buchwald, she had said, Johnny, I love your Trump. Will you do a voiceover for my husband for Christmas? And I said, voiceover? I'm getting into full makeup and doing this for you. And I did it. And because of that, and I established that relationship with her, I called her that day and I said, can you please tell Don that Howard played me today? I said, I'm not looking for anything, but just let Howard know that we have the same agent, you know? She goes, of course. And then I got an email from Don Buchwald who said, I will mention it. I promise nothing. I said, that's all I asked for, you know? And within 2 weeks, they called me, and within 2 weeks, I was on.
Incredible.
And did you get to go into studio ever?
No, I did. I did probably last year this time.
Yeah.
But I was always from my house.
And what
here in Las
was
Vegas.
it like meeting him for the first time?
Oh, I never met him.
Oh, okay.
I only talked to him. I met Conan because I was on his
yeah.
show for years. But with Howard's a little elusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, this is coming out of COVID.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
German
You know what
phone
I
and all.
mean?
Yeah.
So, but I spoke with him on the phone once, literally once. But every time I was on his Trump, I spoke to him every single time.
And he had Trump on his show before, so like,
he
he had a
Trump on the
comparison.
show. And in fact, that's one of his Trump visits going back were one of the places I had to go to crack Trump's voice.
Yeah.
You know, because there was so much on the Apprentice box set, which I had bought. And the 30 hours of bonus materials where I really found his voice. Because if you watch the show, it's green team, blue team, today you're selling lemonade. Yeah. It was very much like that because he was reading it.
Yeah.
Right.
He was reading it. And then it was the bonus stuff where I don't know if you remember the first season, but 2 people started dating each other.
Yeah.
Was
The
it
Final
Bill?
4.
Yeah.
It was Bill Rancid and Kwame.
Okay,
They
yes,
were
yes,
on
yes.
one
Yep, I
team,
watched
and
that
then the
one.
redheaded guy who I've met and the blonde-haired who I ended up meeting, they were in a relationship, and Trump was fascinated by it.
The relationship.
He was, so you two are, right? I mean, you're very attractive. You're very attractive. You're a handsome guy. You have red hair, but you're a handsome guy. I have to tell you, so there's something going on. And I was like, that's it. That's the way in. That's the way in. It was his curiosity. So that was like, because his voice, there's 5 different Trump voices for sure.
Yeah.
But that was like, and
That's
then
it.
if you go back and listen to those Trump interviews on Howard, he's very much like, well, I have to tell you, she's a very attractive woman.
Yeah.
You know, it's very cool. It's a very cool Trump at that time.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I
fascinating.
can't watch or listen to Trump now without like it's you.
Yeah,
It's you.
that's
It's
the
you.
greatest
Serious.
compliment. When people tell me
When he's
that, it's
serious
like when I
now
watch
and-
Trump, I think of
I think
you,
of
and I'm like,
you.
The whole election cycle, like
Yeah.
even after, like at the RNC and everything. It was just.
It's so
I was
good.
telling my wife that I was like, this is Johnny.
Speaking of, I got to get a little personal. When you proposed, did you do anything voice?
Oh no. Everyone asks that. So because people always say to Michelle, like, it's like you're dating 30 guys. You know what I mean?
Strange.
Did he ever come in the bedroom as Austin Powers? And she's
was
like,
curious.
no. You know.
Does she get annoyed by it?
Yeah, yeah. And you'd have to remember, like, she's living with this.
Yes.
And she's living with
Yeah.
it. But she says, it'll be funny. I'll be in the kitchen and she'll be in the living room and she'll see me doing this. She goes, you're doing Trump. I know, I'm trying to think of another line about this whole thing. Because she'll see me sometimes just go like this. And in my mind, I'm doing the impression to like write a line in my head.
That's hilarious.
So during this election season, this latest one, was it different than the first time?
Oh, yeah. Because, you know, I was so lucky to be in the right place in the right time in May of 2015 when he announced. Like, I was just like, nobody was doing Trump. Nobody, other than like Phil Hartman and Daryl Hammond, who I got to meet and work with. So pretty much if you went online and if you put in Donald Trump impersonator, I was like #1, which was incredible. So when he announced and people put in Donald Trump impersonator, I was right place, right time, and it was new. It was totally new. So I was literally like flying around the world. I ended up on Australian Today Show 12 times.
Wow.
This morning in England 6 times. The Indian Today
You're
Show.
addictive. I mean, seriously.
And then they because, you know, I'm a big ham. I've got hours of material. So it wasn't like they had to pull anything out of me.
Right.
You know, Australian television was just like, pull the cord. Okay, 6 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
They go, should we send you questions? I don't really need them. I don't really
He's
need
a
them.
dream. He's a show dream. That's what
Right.
you are.
So that was incredible. I got to go to speak at the European Parliament in Brussels.
That's huge.
I think that was 2019. I got like a movie, and I'd done a couple movies before, those parody movies, Date Night, all those things. I'd done those before. But then I ended up in a couple of films and some TV shows. I was flown out to LA to meet a studio head.
So the acting thing came full circle. And
Yeah,
you were able
because
to
I
do
had the
that.
training and I had worked as a writer for years. So it was one of those things where it just all came together. Right place, right time, right skill set. It was just it was just great.
Yeah, because
so it was different because it was new. And I always say, people, now you must be killing it now. It's like, well, the bloom's off the rose.
Yeah.
But luckily I've got my corporate clients. And I did get a call last week. I did a really big event for a billion, I want to say his friend. I've worked with this guy a number of times. Very wealthy.
Oh, we'll say he's a friend. He's a friend.
He's a friend, buddy of mine, multi-billionaire. But he did a big fundraiser for Carrie Lake. And he had Lee Greenwood, Carrie Lake, Tommy Tuberville, and Trump was supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Trump was stuck in New York. This was April with the whole court thing. And they called me because he'd hired me before. He said, can you step in for Trump? I'm like,
No problem.
Stepped in for Trump.
so there's maybe 30 people at this party at this billionaire's home. And $25,000 a head, right?
Yeah.
It was just, it was wild. So Lee Greenwood's opening for me.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It's
That's
just
crazy.
crazy.
That's
You
incredible.
ever pinch yourself?
He gave me the Trump Bible. I have that. I held on to that. But then, you know, I ended up doing that. And at that event was, I won't say the person's name, but Trump's #1 fundraiser. Very famous person. And she loved me. She goes, you're so, oh my God, if you were a foot taller, it'd be. So she called my agent and said, we have something coming up in December at Mar-a-Lago, and we want John. And I was like, oh my God, that would be incredible. You know, it would be incredible. It's just a historic moment.
Yes.
And didn't happen. It kind of like the whole thing fell apart, but I was like, I was that close.
Do you ever get offended when they hammered him so much?
No.
Like I didn't know.
No, 'cause he's
well,
the
I don't know if
hammer.
you, but I didn't know if you ever stepped into character so much you just started feeling like.
No. You know what? I understand exactly.
yeah.
Yes. But you know, his style is bam, bam,
Yeah,
bam. He's always been like
Yeah,
that. If you always
yeah.
go back to like the the 70s. But yeah, sometimes I'm like the poor guy. You know what I mean?
I've never been treated so bad. I can't.
I've
do
never
that.
been treated so poorly.
No president ever.
94% of the press is against us. It's sad. It's really, really sad.
Do you ever like dream of your characters?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
It's when you're doing them all the time, or like when I was working on, I was shot a film in England called Purge of Thrones. You know. I was Sir Orange of something, but we shot at Leeds Castle, which was King Henry VIII's castle.
Very cool.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But when you have a lot of lines,
Yeah.
movie line, like there's no prompter.
Right.
Like you're on set, outside, it's freezing. You blow your lines. Everyone in the crew and the cast is like, like no one's happy with you.
Right.
So you're laying in bed and you're like, trying to learn. This is the place where you're. Oh shit! With my, and you're laying in bed. You're like, and then you're Trump in your dreams. You know what I mean? You're doing the voice. It's crazy.
So John, is there any new characters that you've done recently or coming up?
Well, I had to come up with Biden. So I started working on Biden. Oh, come on, man. Oh, listen, Jack. There's a bunch of sarsaparilla. Oh man. So I had Trump doing Biden in my weekly press conferences. Oh, listen. Oh, come on, man. What's going on? By the way. So I would have Trump do Biden, and then I could do Biden joke. You know, Biden is so old, his memories are in black and white. I have to tell you. Biden is so old, his blood, they've discontinued his blood type. It's true. They're not making his blood. They're not making his blood. But my blood is at MIT because my uncle, John Trump, stable genius, super genius. He and I are very close. His blood is my blood, and my blood is his blood. And this land is your land. It was made for you and me. Mainly me. You know what I mean?
So good.
Yeah.
So anything new though coming up? Like
No, nothing. You know,
you're working on. Like have you like nothing's caught your eye to say, hey, I might
Nothing's
do
caught
that?
my eye, and it's one of these things where, you know, let's dial the clock back 40 years or whatever, and prior to a lot of cable, like everybody had a, we all had a unified experience in this country. There were 3 networks, 2 UHF channels. Didn't matter if you're from Philadelphia or Sarasota or
Channel
Dallas,
3.
Texas.
Channel
3, 6, and 10.
Yep.
And we all had those things. It was like when MASH went off the air.
Yep.
1/3 of the country watched it. Over 100 million people. You couldn't get 100 million people to watch the Super Bowl now.
Right.
You know? So you could have news characters, you could have people breaking out from TV shows, movie stars, but now we're in a time, and I'm not saying there aren't people that are not imitatable, but we're not in a place where there's John Waynes and Jimmy Stewarts and all these characters. I'm going a little back, but there aren't as many modern people, actors, or personalities that you can necessarily impersonate that a large portion of the audience is going to know.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's
You
true.
know what I mean? You have people who just watch HGTV.
Right.
Right.
And you have people who just watch one news source or just this. So
That's true.
And you know, movies are down. Basically it's 14 to 20-year-olds going to those.
Yeah.
You know. So
So do you have
Yeah. Okay. So
the
we wanted to ask you.
we got to name this something. This segment.
I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
Kim's questions. I
Quinn's
don't know.
questions. McMinute. I don't know. Let's go for it.
McMinute?
McMinute. Mick is
should
fun.
I do this
Okay.
as Dr.
You
Phil? What were you thinking?
He spoke at the rally in
Yeah,
Madison Square
in
Garden.
Madison Square Garden.
Okay. So we're gonna play this or that.
Oh, okay.
You want to answer as Trump?
Sure.
Okay. You ready?
Right. Okay.
Thanksgiving
I have to
time.
tell you, great time, fantastic time, very nice. I love turkeys. Love turkey. Great.
Turkey or ham?
Turkey. Are you kidding me? Turkey.
Why?
Because ham is pink. I don't like to eat pink meat. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. There's that big bone right in the middle. I like cutting the turkey. Cutting the turkey.
Did you watch the Tyson Paul fight?
Yes, absolute sham. It's unbelievable how bad that was.
Tyson or Paul? Who were you rooting for?
I had just done an interview with Jake, and
That's
he was a
true.
great kid, and he gave me this stuff called Prime. It was it was very good. It was delicious. And believe me, Mike, I did a lot of fights with Mike. In Atlantic City, and he's a great guy. But you know, Mike, I like new things. things. And Jake Paul is new. It's kind of like with my wives. I always say 44 and out the door. I'm always looking forward. It's like this country because we're making America great again. So it's MAGA Gaga. MAGA Gaga. It's not just MAGA. It's MAGA Gaga.
Molly, you liking this over there?
Oh my God, weights or treadmill?
Weights or treadmill? Neither. Working out is for people who don't know how to play golf.
Very true. Okay, and lastly here, staying in for a date night or going out?
I like to go out, go to the drive-thru at McDonald's, get my favorite things, and then come back to Mar-a-Lago. And then Melania and I, we play this tremendous game called hide and go seek. Hide and go seek. And I look for her all over, and she gets away. Somehow she got her ankle bracelet off, so we're not exactly sure where she is, but she'll show up. Did you know she's very smart? Did you know that?
I did know that, yeah.
And the way I knew was 2 years before COVID, I would put my hand out and she would slap it away. She knew about COVID 2 years before it happened. She would just slap my hand.
An amazing woman. I love it.
Johnny D, thank you so much for being here on the What He Made, not the What He Made of show. This is That One.
I don't want you to
leave.
leave.
This is That One podcast. Hey, where can people go deeper with you?
Just, if you put in The Johnny D Show anywhere on Instagram, on YouTube, anywhere, I'm there. If you want to have me host a national sales meeting, find me at thejohnnydshow.com.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
It's so great to meet you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Paisan.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, you're incredible.
All right, guys, you've been watching or listening to the That One podcast. Hey, cut, mess up. No, we're not perfect here. That One podcast. It's your boy C-Roc, Kins, and your boy Johnny D over here signing off. Make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, family, coworkers about us. Keep coming back. And also the Motivation Success Network. Shout out to Dennis and his team over there. They're phenomenal. And until next time, be that one. Cut. Great job. There's so many people out there doing it, and like Saturday Night Live, different places, and it's not even as good as yours.
Insane timing. Because when he wrote Art of the Deal, he literally done pink. I like the pink meat. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's that big bone right in the middle. I like the